What's up guys, Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. It's that time of the week where we hit you with a brand new build enhanced with the magic that is modding. This is the Divine Crusader, our Knights of the Nine modded build. The Divine Crusader didn't begin his tale the way you might think. No, he started as a nothing, neither humble nor endearing, but he overcame his sins and got his shit together, becoming the man who would restore honor to the Knights of the Nine. Serving the Divines and wearing the sacred armor of his holy order, the Divine Crusader is a cleansing light in a province plagued with darkness. The bards will sing songs of the man in shining armor who brought justice to the land of Skyrim. The Divine Crusader travels with a worthy companion using restoration magic to both heal his allies and devastate his foes. The combination of fire, sun, and light, along with his heavy shield, mace, and sword, will make short work of any of those who consider themselves above the might of the Divines. Before we get into it, don't forget the timestamps for video navigation can be found in the description below, and we'll also have a full mods list there for you as well. The mods we'll use for this build include the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod to breathe some new life into the Skyrim's stale racial bonuses, the Aurora Standing Stones of Skyrim for a new host of powers and abilities attached to the stones scattered across the province. Then there's the alternate start mod, which adds that sweet role-playing that doesn't force us to get captured and taken to Helgen. And finally, but most importantly, there is the Ordinator perk overhaul, which will give us a ton of new perk choices. In order to get the trademark armor and weapons of the Knights of the Nine, we will be using the Divine Crusader mod in the Creation Club. However, we know many of you don't like the Creation Club, so there are a couple of alternatives. There is a mod which gives you very similar arms and armor available to download, and you can even use the Paladin armor in the Immersive Armors mod if you'd prefer. That will give you a different aesthetic, but it won't detract from the character or the role-playing too significantly. But with that said, here is the Divine Crusader's race, standing stone, and stats. The Divine Crusader is an Imperial, which means he will begin the game with the following base stats. He'll have 100 points in health, magicka, and stamina, 1% health regen, 3% magicka regen, 5% stamina regen, and 300 carry weight. As an Imperial, he'll also receive the following abilities. Discipline gives his allies bonus armor and attack damage in combat. Imperial Virtues gives a random boost to either health, magicka, or stamina at the commencement of combat. And the Human Spirit lets you change attributes, resistances, and skills at levels 10, 20, and 30. There is also a quest-related reward granted to you when you have successfully completed 20 quests for the people of Skyrim. This gives you the Colovian Star. With it, you can replenish 2 attributes with the highest remaining percentage once per day. As for Standing Stones, we'll be using the Lord Stone, and this will be beneficial as the Divine Crusader's perks will keep him with relatively high health most of the time. With this stone, you gain an ability and a power. The ability is Blood of Kings, and it boosts your attack damage with high health in exchange for reduced damage at low health. Then there's the Kneel or Be Knelt power, which can be used once per day, and with it you can slam nearby enemies into the ground, dealing damage and rendering them helpless. The Divine Crusader will have a stat spread of 40% health to stay alive, 30% magicka for casting consistently, and then 30% stamina to shield bash and power attack. Our stamina points will increase power attack damage too, thanks to the perks we'll talk about soon. The Divine Crusader hails from Cyrodiil and spent most of his life working as a guard in his home city of Anvil. The Crusader was anything but exceptional. He didn't train hard enough to join the Fighters Guild or the Imperial Army, and he didn't apply himself enough academically to be taken seriously by any college. He simply lived an unexceptional life of boring patrols and mediocre pay. One pleasant evening, the Crusader was on the night shift, tasked with patrolling the dockside. He didn't mind his shift in all honesty. It kept him out of the tavern where he'd go to spend most of his hard-earned gold, and the evening waves brushing lightly against the pier filled him with a sense of reassuring calm. In fact, on this particular evening, the ambience was so tranquil that he couldn't prevent himself from taking a break on the cool sand of Anvil shores. After a few minutes of admiring the twilight reflecting off the water, he was fast asleep. When he next opened his eyes, the docks were alive with early birds. Fishmongers were setting up their stalls, sailors were loading ships with cargo ahead of their imminent voyages, and a stray dog with no concern for the Crusader's slumber was sniffing at his ears. He stifled his frustration and patted the dog on the head before replacing his helmet and brushing the sand off his cloak. If the captain of the guard knew he'd fallen asleep again, he'd be a dead man. Hastily, he made his way back to the city to report another uneventful night at the docks. On his way, though, across the boardwalk, he noticed a crowd gathered on the furthest pier. He made his way over to the scene and cleared his throat. Noticing a man of the guard, the commoners parted, and there, lying limp with her legs hanging over the edge, was a woman with her throat slit. The Crusader covered his mouth in shock and then regained his composure. According to the man who'd found her, this had happened in the night. The Divine Crusader's heart skipped a beat. He should have been patrolling past this very spot. He could have prevented all of this. He winced at the onslaught of guilt he felt. His conscience berated him, and he couldn't speak a word of this. If anyone found out he'd slept through his watch, he'd lose his job in an instant. The following day, he took a handful of flowers to the great chapel of Dibella. There, a service was being held for the young woman, taken before her time. As he looked over the weeping family and friends of the poor woman, he wanted more than anything to cry out for his delinquency. But he held his tongue, laid the flowers on the grave, and left without a word. The guilt only grew more intense, and the Crusader resorted to spending most of his evenings in the Count's Arm. In the tavern, buried in a mug of beer, he could silence the voice in his head. Each visit to the tavern proved more expensive, as every visit required more alcohol to hide his guilt. He knew that he could only go on so long before he drank himself to poverty, perhaps even to death. It had been a month since the murder. He stumbled from the arms under the warm light of Massa, and as he passed the great chapel of Dibella, he noticed a man in modest robes staring at him. Disapproval was plain in his expression. Even in his inebriated state, he could identify that much. The man stood and preached to the Crusader. He had the voice of a priest and identified himself as a preacher of the Nine. He belittled the Crusader with sharp words. If he wasn't already dead certain that he was a failure, this would have been constructive in reaching that conclusion. The last thing he heard as he walked out of earshot was the preacher's word: "Find the light of the Nine, lost one, before you drink yourself to an early grave." When he fell into bed, he was captured by sleep immediately, and he wasn't lucky enough to have a dreamless night. In the dream, he looked down from above. A gravedigger was burying a corpse. A preacher stood nearby. He had something prepared to read, but there was nobody at the funeral to listen. On the gravestone, he saw his own name engraved, but not a soul in Anvil cared enough to wish him well in the afterlife. The Crusader awoke the next morning drenched in sweat. He felt his heartbeat and thanked the gods. He knew he had to turn his life around. Heeding the preacher's words, he packed his belongings and left Anvil for good. He bought a map from the general store marked with the 9 way shrines scattered across the province. The journey would certainly humble him. Maybe this pilgrimage would give him some purpose. First, he visited Arkay, followed by Mara. From there, he made his way northeast, finishing his pilgrimage at the Shrine of Talos. On his way back to Anvil, he stumbled upon an old building. It was in ruins, scorched by burn marks on the exterior. By the door was a sign: the Priory of the Nine, the headquarters to the legendary knights of old. Inside, the place was trashed. Looters had taken everything of value. He walked through the atrium, stepping carefully and with reverence, despite the tattered state of the place. A staircase set in the middle of the floor led down to what looked like a secret chamber. The door was broken off. As he made his way into the secret room, he saw an empty armor stand at the end, past an ornate stained glass image depicting a shining knight fighting a beast of some sort, garbed in gold. Was that Pelin Whitestrake, the fabled hero of men? The stained glass cast a colourful glow across the floor, and in the centre of the room, a ghost appeared. The Crusader reached for his sword, but the spectre revealed himself as Sir Amiel, the founder of the Knights of the Nine. He spoke of a raid on the Priory and a group of bandits with northern accents. He willed the Crusader to deliver justice to these thieves, for his presence in the Priory was no stroke of luck. The drunken failure was chosen, and suddenly, feeling sobered by the purpose restored to his existence, the Divine Crusader set out in search of the lost armor. He made his way north through to Skyrim before setting up camp in the wilderness. When we join the Divine Crusader, he is on the trail of the bandits. This means that with the alternate start mod, we will begin camping in the woods. His primary goal will be to track down the bandits who stole the Crusader armor, but he is fully aware that he will need to be prepared for a fight. He doesn't expect the bandits to give up the sacred armor easily. Aside from reclaiming the armor, the Divine Crusader will be dedicated to his new purpose in life. That will involve helping people in need, carrying out the will of the 9 divines, and purging the lands of all undead monstrosities. Any act that will be favored by the Aedra fits perfectly with a Divine Crusader. He will frequently visit temples and shrines across the land to acquire blessings and to offer prayers. As for factions, he will definitely follow the Dawnguard DLC, taking great pleasure in ridding Skyrim of the vampires. He will also consider the main storyline and his Dragonborn powers an honor. If he had any doubts about his role as the Divine Crusader, then they would be vanquished by the realization that he is the prophesied Dragonborn. That will also extend to the Dragonborn DLC, of course. He will pledge his services to the Imperial forces in the Civil War questline, doing his bit for his people. He may not have been a shining example of the Empire when he was a city guard in Anvil, but this would yet be another opportunity for redemption. He will join the College of Winterhold to master the holy art of restoration, and he will follow any quests related to the Aedra. Some examples include healing the tree in Whiterun, or the tasks given to him by the various Aedric priests across the land. There is a priest of Mara in Dawnstar who seeks someone to remove Vaymina's influence, and that is a perfect opportunity for the Divine Crusader. But now that we have an understanding of the Divine Crusader's backstory, role-playing and factions, let's deal into his skills, spells, perks, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be Restoration, One-Handed, Block, and Heavy Armor. We'll look at the specific perks from these 4 skills very soon, but first you'll want to look out for the following restoration spells in your travels. The Crusader will use healing spells like Close Wounds, Grant Healing, and Heal Other, and with all of these you can easily heal both you and your companion. Stendarr's Aura is not only perfect for the Divine Crusader's aesthetic, but it works brilliantly when dealing with the undead, which the Crusader will be doing often. Then we have a variety of sun damage spells including Sunfire, Vampire's Bane, and even new spells added by the Ordinator perk overhaul like Sunblast, Holy Hands, and Stellar Core. The only other thing to note is that you will want to use powers that are available to you through the perks like Apotheosis, but now that you have all of those, let's focus on the Crusader's essential perks, and they come to you courtesy of the Ordinator perk overhaul. First up, we have Restoration, and this school of Magicka is the life essence of the Divine Crusader. For the majority of his life, he was anything but pure. However, his pilgrimage and his encounter with the Knights of the Nine humbled him and showed him the way. From the Restoration skill tree, take Restoration Mastery 2 out of 2, Restoration Dual Casting, Edgewalker, Respite, False Light, Light Wielder, In Thy Name, Descending Light, Warrior's Flame, Sacred Flame, Ashes to Ashes, Battle Cleric, Eternal Flame, Apotheosis, Hallowed Burial 2 out of 2, Exorcist, Crusader's Fire, Overflowing Cup, Under My Wings, Spirit Tutors, Sacred Guardian, Wheel of Life, Enduring Ideal, Pilgrim, and then Gods and Mortals. False Light is a handy perk for turning healing spells into damage dealers when you need range. It will allow you to deal damage equal to 75% of the amount the spell would normally heal. Light Wielder adds 10% extra damage to this and also allows Sacred Guardian and Under My Wings to deal damage too. Sacred Guardian causes a 20-foot aura of protection to appear, which heals allies with under 30% health by 150 points, and Under My Wings causes dual-casted healing spells to hit non-mechanical allies within 20 feet. In Thy Name increases false light damage by 15% more when you're under a Shrine's Blessing. The Warrior's Flame perk causes one random target, yourself included, to be either blessed or cursed depending on whether they are friendly or not. Sacred Flame and Ashes to Ashes will boost the positive and negative effects of Warrior's Flame respectively. With Wheel of Life you will gradually accumulate ambient life force, which releases in periodic bursts to heal you 100 points every 30 seconds. Enduring Ideal will boost this perk effects too. Finally, Apotheosis grants you the Apotheosis power. With it, you can cast Warrior's Flame on all nearby for 20 seconds for 250 Magicka. This can be used once per day. Serving in the City Guard, the Crusader wasted his potential, never showing the ambition to become a noteworthy warrior. But with the will of the Divines behind him and the set of Holy Crusader armor, he will wield a sword and mace like a true hero, the kind they sing songs about. From the one-handed skill tree, go for One-Handed Mastery 2 out of 2, Furious Strength, Disciplined Fighter, Thundering Blow, and Aftershock. With Thundering Blow, you can perform a power attack that deals double damage and costs no stamina. In order to do this, you must perform a total of 8 or more one-handed regular attacks in combat, and with Aftershock, executing a Thundering Blow will increase your attack speed by 75% for 3 seconds. Two-handed weapons may be for great displays of strength, but after donning the armor, the Divine Crusader will fight like a true chivalrous knight, and with that, there is a shield in the left hand. From the block tree, grab Block Mastery 2 out of 2, Quick Reflexes, Deflect Arrows, Dominion, Timed Block 2 out of 2, Block Runner, Hold the Line, Poke the Dragon, Apocalypse Proof 2 out of 2, Power Bash, Skull Rattler, Cast Aside, and Unstoppable Force. Quick Reflexes and Timed Block will give us an edge in combat when blocking. Quick Reflexes will slow time when you are blocking and an enemy attempts to power attack you, while Timed Block gives you the chance to block 30% more damage by blocking within a second of raising your shield. With Hold the Line, allies within 10 feet gain 250 points of armor rating every time you perform a timed block, and Poke the Dragon also buffs your timed blocks if you happen to successfully block an attack. After the block, you can retaliate with 25% increased attack damage and critical strike damage for 5 seconds. Apocalypse Proof expands the effects of your timed blocks to include incoming spells, rendering them ineffective. Take the Power Bash perk to get the Shield Bash ability, and then you can use Cast Aside to interrupt attacks and knock the attacker to the ground. Lastly, Unstoppable Force adds the Shield Charge ability. Finally, we have Heavy Armor, and this is a skill that allows the Divine Crusader to effectively wear the sacred armor of his order. From the Heavy Armor skill tree, take Heavy Armor Mastery 2 out of 2 and Heavy Armor Fit. So with all of those skills, spells, and perks taken into consideration, this is how the Divine Crusader will play in combat. You'll want to ensure that you always have a blessing active to reap the benefits of the Gods and Mortals perk. The Shrine of Stendarr being a nice choice for 20% improved blocking, and the Crusader's Shield active effect, which means whenever you block an attack, you absorb 25 points of stamina and stagger the attacker. The Shrine of Kinnereth is also good, as you'll have your stamina fortified by 50 points, and it gives you the active effect called Howling Wind, which makes your stamina regenerate 25% faster for every enemy within 25 feet. The Shrine of Akatosh is also a viable option because it makes you regenerate magic at 20% faster, and it gives you the active effect Turn the Hourglass, which means that twice a day it greatly slows time for 5 seconds when combat damage leaves you below 15% health. After you're blessed, cast Stendarr's Aura as you head into combat with a companion. You can then switch up between healing yourself and your ally and using dual cast Heal Others to damage enemies. This will be the main means of offense once you have that False Light perk. When dealing with undead, there are plenty of options as mentioned above in the spell section. When you're not spellcasting, you'll be smashing apart the unholy with your shield and either slashing or bashing them with your mace or sword. As for gear, we'll be using the Creation Club Knights of the Nine armor, the heavy variant to be specific. The Cuirass increases your armor by 10%, reduces incoming damage from undead by 10%, boosts your health by 10 points, and gives you 8% casting reduction cost for restoration. The boots also offer an 8% restoration reduction, as do the gauntlets. The gauntlets will even increase disease resistance by 50%, and lastly, the helmet will decrease illusion casting costs by 10%. It gives you the restoration boost by 8% and will improve prices by 8%. As for weapons, we'll be alternating between the Knights of the Nine sword and mace in one hand and the heavy shield in the other. The sword and mace both burn the target for 15 points, while the shield creates a protective ward for up to 40 points while blocking. As we mentioned at the beginning, this build can certainly be played without Creation Club content, and there are mods for very similar armor and weapons, and you can even play this build with the Paladin armor from the Immersive Armors mod. It may not be the exact same aesthetic, but the character itself is unchanged. Any enchanted necklaces or rings you may find in your journeys, which reduce restoration casting costs, will work a treat too. And there you have it, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see all of our upcoming new modded and vanilla builds, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Don't forget that you can also find timestamps in the description below, along with the full mod list and links to all our social media accounts. Thank you so much for watching, guys. My name is Scott, and I look forward to nerding out with you again in the next one.